Some of the stories you'll hear here were shared online. Others come from personal accounts. Names and identifying details have been altered. This is a reconstructed narrative based on reported experiences. You're watching the Black File Project. Some places don't just hold memories. They hold whatever was left behind. When I was younger, my family moved into a house we never truly wanted. We had looked at several options, but circumstances pushed us toward one that immediately felt wrong. No obvious reason, no visible flaws, just an unshakable sense that the house didn't welcome us. Within the first few days, we started noticing strange details. Old items left behind in places they shouldn't have been. Hidden areas that showed signs of obsessive use by someone before us. Nothing supernatural on the surface, just evidence of a life that had unraveled inside those walls. And then, the house began to change the people living in it. Someone very close to me, once warm and stable, slowly became unrecognizable. Their personality darkened. Their behavior shifted. Destructive habits appeared without warning or explanation. The tension inside the house became unbearable. Fear replaced comfort. Violence replaced normalcy. Eventually, things escalated to the point where outside intervention became unavoidable. After that, the house fell quiet. Only one person remained, trying to rebuild some sense of peace. For months, nothing happened. The silence almost felt like relief, as if whatever had been there was finally gone. Until one night, after a night out with friends, that person went to sleep and experienced a nightmare so vivid it felt physical. In the dream, they were attacked, overpowered, violently assaulted. When they woke up, they dismissed it as a bad dream. That illusion shattered the next morning. A visitor arrived and immediately noticed something was wrong. The bedroom looked like it had been torn apart. Furniture displaced. Objects shattered. Clear signs of a struggle that no one remembered consciously experiencing. Then came the mirror. Bruises, marks, injuries that shouldn't have existed. Not long after that, the house was abandoned for good. Months later, by pure coincidence, there was a brief conversation with someone who had lived there before, without any prompting. They mentioned leaving the house after witnessing a drastic and frightening change in their partner. The same descent into aggression, addiction, and emotional collapse. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was psychological. Or maybe some places don't create monsters. They just bring them to the surface. For several years, I worked overseas in a highly restricted environment. During the day, the facility was crowded, personnel moving constantly, systems active, everything loud and alive. Access was tightly controlled. Multiple security layers, physical barriers, surveillance. If someone didn't belong there, they simply couldn't get in. There was no gray area. At night, everything changed. The building became almost empty. Only a handful of people remained inside, spread across a massive structure that suddenly felt far too large for the number of eyes watching it. Patrols still existed, but they operated outside, disconnected from what was happening within the walls. Late one night, an alert came in. A motion sensor had been triggered in a secured internal room, an area that should have been completely sealed. Someone needed to physically verify it. I was sent. When I arrived, the room was empty. No signs of forced entry, no movement, nothing out of place. I reported back that I was alone and asked security to confirm they could see me on their cameras. There was a pause. Then a voice replied calmly, "There are 2 people in the room." I assumed it was a mistake. I asked where the other person was positioned. The answer came immediately, precise and confident. A location just behind me. I asked for a description. They couldn't identify a face, but they described height, build, clothing that no one had worn in years. I slowly turned toward the indicated spot. There was nothing there. At that moment, confusion turned into fear. Not panic, something colder. I contacted the operations center and asked them to check the same camera feed. Their response was immediate. "Who is that standing next to you?" That was enough. I secured the room and evacuated. Within minutes, armed security personnel arrived and began clearing the area room by room. As they moved through the building, additional alarms began activating one after another, in multiple sealed zones across the facility. These weren't networked systems. Each sensor operated independently. Some were set to extremely low sensitivity, the kind that only triggered with significant physical movement. And yet, dozens activated. For over an hour, security teams swept the entire structure. Nothing was found. No intruders, no animals, no mechanical faults. There was no video recording available to review later, but multiple senior personnel had independently seen the same thing on live feeds, and the sensor logs confirmed extensive movement where nothing should have been. When morning finally came, no explanation followed. To this day, the incident remains unresolved, but one detail still stands out. The surveillance cameras were exceptionally clear. Faces were normally visible in extreme detail, even at distance. The person I was standing next to, my face was unmistakable. The other figure, they could see the body, they could see the movement, but the face was never there. This incident didn't happen to me directly, but to someone I trust deeply. Several years ago, a close family member attended a small house gathering. It wasn't a chaotic party, more of a social get-together, where most people knew each other, at least indirectly. Friends of friends, familiar faces, a relaxed atmosphere. As the night went on and people became more comfortable, someone suggested turning the evening into a game. That's when one of the guests mentioned she practiced tarot readings and offered to do short, informal readings for anyone interested. At first, it felt harmless. A few people gathered around a kitchen table while she began. The initial reading sounded generic. Broad statements, personality traits, things you could easily find online. No one seemed uncomfortable. Then something shifted. Without warning, the woman stopped speaking in general terms and began addressing one person directly, the homeowner. She started revealing deeply personal details about her life, events, experiences, things that no one else in the room should have known. As the reading continued, the homeowner became visibly distressed. Her reactions escalated from discomfort to anger, then to panic. She begged the woman to stop. Her voice cracked. She became hysterical. But the reader didn't stop. She continued calmly, almost mechanically, as if she were no longer aware of the room around her. Eventually, the homeowner fled the kitchen. At that moment, the reader fell silent, still seated, staring forward, completely expressionless. The room didn't know how to react. Minutes later, the homeowner returned. This time, she was holding a firearm. She pointed it directly at the woman and demanded she continue the reading, daring her to say one more word. Some guests left immediately. Others tried desperately to de-escalate the situation. The reader didn't move. She didn't speak. She didn't react. She didn't even blink. Then the lights began to flicker. There was no storm, no power issue. Every light in the house flickered at once. At the same time, a large dog that had been resting quietly suddenly stood up and began barking aggressively, not at anyone in the room, but toward a hallway that was fully lit and completely empty. That's when something crossed the space. A massive, shapeless shadow moved quickly from the hallway, swept through the kitchen, and vanished through the front of the house. It had no clear form, just darkness in motion. That was enough. My family member left immediately and waited outside until she could be picked up. Inside the house, things eventually calmed down. The homeowner even tried to convince people to return, insisting no one was in danger anymore. No one believed her. To this day, the person who told me this story is not someone easily shaken, but this was one of the few times I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Whatever happened that night didn't feel like a game anymore. And maybe the most unsettling part is this. Sometimes it's not about what you believe in, but about what notices when you start paying attention. Several years ago, my family temporarily moved into a property being used for work purposes. It wasn't meant to be permanent, and none of us had much of a say in the decision. The building served two functions: professional space on the lower level, living quarters above. From the beginning, the arrangement felt wrong. The previous residents had left abruptly. There was tension surrounding the transition, the kind that lingers even after the furniture is gone. Nothing was broken. Nothing looked abandoned, but the atmosphere felt occupied. On my first night there, exhaustion hit me hard. I went to sleep early. That's when the dream started. An elderly woman appeared, her features indistinct, her presence unmistakable. She questioned why I was there. I told her the truth. I had chosen the place, and didn't want to stay. Her demeanor changed instantly. She became furious, demanding answers I didn't have. The dream turned violent. I woke up gasping for air, my chest aching, my body frozen in fear. The next morning, a family member asked me an unusual question. Did you sleep well? Did you dream? Reluctantly, I described what I had seen. What followed was unsettling. They contacted the former occupants and learned that an elderly woman had passed away in the house years earlier. Her death was not peaceful. There had been unresolved resentment, family conflict, and a sense of betrayal that followed her until the end. After that conversation, something changed. The dreams stopped. Time passed. Life continued. But the house never felt neutral. It felt patient. Years later, unexpected illness struck someone closely connected to the unresolved conflict tied to that home. Whether coincidence or not, the timing was impossible to ignore. Eventually, we prepared to leave. The night before moving out, the dream returned. The same presence, this time disguised, familiar, almost comforting at first. She asked if I was really leaving. When I said yes, the anger returned instantly. The confrontation repeated itself with terrifying clarity. When I woke up, I knew one thing for certain. The house wasn't reacting to us moving in. It was reacting to being abandoned. We left shortly after and never returned. Some homes don't want new residents. Others don't want to be left behind.